Good afternoon to everyone who is joining us online. This is the Lunch and Learn presentation for those interested in learning a little bit more about the Clinical Ethics Fellowship here at the Fairbanks Center for Medical Ethics. My name is Brian Leland and I direct the Fairbanks Center for Medical Ethics, and I'm the Fellowship Director here for our Clinical Ethics Fellowship.
I'm Robin Axel Adams. I'm the manager here. My background is chaplaincy, and I did the fellowship in 2011, 2012.
Robin and I are going to take the next 20 minutes to give you a crash course on the fellowship, give you an overview, and then we'll have 10 minutes thereafter to field any additional questions that you might have. So without further ado, I'm going to hand things over to Robin so we can get started.
Thank you. So our goal today is that when you leave, that you can have an understanding of who we are and what the fellowship is about, and understand how this can impact your hospital or your department, wherever you might be. So as we begin our journey, we love to tell our story about the Fairbanks Center. We are an endowed center, and so that was one of our commitments, is that we would always tell our story of how we became. And so it was around 2000 that the Charles Warren Fairbanks family approached then Methodist Hospital and said, we want a living memorial to Charles Warren Fairbanks. He was on the first board of directors here for Methodist Hospital. He was a U.S. Senator, he was a vice president, and a very generous giver to the city. And so there were three proposals that were written. One of them was by Dr. Stephen Ivey, who proposed a hospital-based clinical ethics center, and his was selected. And so we were founded in 2001, but it took a couple of years to find our amazing director, Dr. Paul Helft, who became the director in 2004. And then he really coalesced what does our department look like and how do we really focus on those educational programs. And so he consolidated the consultation service within the academic health center, and then launched the lecture series, and then developed the fellowship. And so Dr. Leland is our current director. Dr. Helft stepped aside from the directorship a couple of years ago, and so Dr. Leland has taken the helm starting in 2022. Our first class was in 2005, and in 2019, we graduated our 100th fellow, and then most of you are probably interested in the 23-24 class, and that will be our 19th class. And so our mission really is, if we think about the fellowship, our mission is to empower team members to be ethics resources for their respective healthcare systems through education. And so what is the fellowship? It's a 9-month part-time interdisciplinary fellowship. So let's break down each of those words. 9 months, meaning that we start on August 30th this year, and we will end on May 22nd. So we go through the academic year. We are part-time, which means we meet 1 day a week on Wednesdays. So everybody has their full-time job, and then they are there with us on Wednesdays. We are interdisciplinary. Our class is small for a reason. We usually accept 6 to 9 people, but we want everyone from so many different perspectives, because we can learn so much from each other, and we all come with a different set of eyes and ears to clinical ethics. And so we have an interdisciplinary group on purpose. There is a tuition in order to be a part of our fellowship. So if you are currently enrolled or while you are doing the fellowship, you will be in a master's level or higher education program. The tuition is $5,000. $500. Thank you.
Yep.
It's a great discount today for $500. Everyone else, the tuition is $3,000, and IU Health team members are able to receive tuition forgiveness. So there is no tuition for IU Health team members. And so AJ Radford is down at Bloomington, and she is a risk manager down there. And this is an amazing statement, and I wish we had time to read it all. But one of the things that I really want to highlight is her last couple of sentences, where she says, in administration, rarely do we offer staff agency in making a difference. And this is a big message that she wants to communicate moving forward. I know without a doubt that my fellowship is the most important journey I have gone through in my nursing career. And AJ has been an ICU nurse for years. And so it's such a privilege for her to say that about us. So Brian, can you delve into the fellowship a little bit more?
My pleasure, Robin. So we're going to take maybe the next 7 minutes or so to talk about the components of the fellowship, which I break into 3 pillars that form its foundation. And those pillars are education, service, and scholarship. So if we start with the education pieces, this primarily focuses on our educational seminars. And ethics fellows who join us will spend early parts of the year being exposed to foundational principles in bioethics, which then kind of gives them an understanding of a little bit of how we think like ethicists. And then we will jump quickly into issues that are pertinent to clinical ethics specifically. And those topics can include everything from perinatal ethics to transgender ethics to ethics surrounding organ donation to ethics about how we equitably provide care to our undocumented immigrant population. These sessions will last anywhere between an hour and a half to 2.5 hours each Wednesday, and usually have 1 to 2 of them per fellowship day. The seminars are led by either core faculty here at the Fairbanks Center for Medical Ethics or outside content experts that are invited that have a specific expertise in a certain topic area. In addition to the clinical ethics pieces, we also have a dedicated communication curriculum in our educational experience, and that focuses primarily on a training technique called Vital Talk, where fellows will be exposed to simulated patient or family encounters where they will learn specific techniques to navigate complex conversations. And then lastly, I'd like to acknowledge us as leaders in this area, really double down on a curriculum that focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so we have multiple seminars that focus on cultural dynamics, immigration pathways, bias, and then respective application and healthcare of the most common faith groups that we encounter here in the greater Indianapolis community as well. It does take time to prepare for these seminars. So generally speaking, we expect fellows will need somewhere between 2 and 4 hours a week to adequately prepare for their fellowship day. And that will mean reading articles that content experts provide fellows in preparation for exploring and navigating a conversation pertinent to the topic area for that day. And occasionally that may even include podcasts or videos. Jumping to the second component of the fellowship, which is service. Service is defined overwhelmingly by the clinical ethics consult service experience that each fellow gets. And so every fellow will do somewhere between 4 and 5 weeks of their fellowship experience where they are the point person or the frontline consultant for ethics consultations that come in through the academic health center. And what that means is carrying around an iPhone that serves as a pager functionally, doing intakes, and then under the supervision of your core faculty member here at the Fairbanks Center, navigating ethics consults, whether that's mediating a medical team meeting, serving as the representatives for ethics at a family care conference, and or documenting in the chart with an ethics consult note. Additionally, during that approximate month that fellows are the point person for ethics consults, they will present at our ethics consultation subcommittee meetings, which happen on the second and fourth Wednesdays of each month at 7:30. And that's when a larger group in our ethics community here at the Academic Health Center at IU Health gets together and talks about either recent or active cases that came through the consult service that allow an important teaching point or require additional conversation to most thoughtfully help a team navigate a patient's care. Lastly, a couple of years ago, we formalized a curriculum to empower ethics fellows to be competent in note writing by the time the fellowship is concluded. And so that's an additional piece of the consult experience during the fellowship. Lastly is the scholarly project. And I do want to just tell everyone who's panicked already to take a deep breath, because this does not mean that we are going to assign you to a lab to be pipetting in test tubes, but rather we expect that every fellow who applies to the fellowship is able to communicate a dedicated interest that they have pertinent to a clinical ethics topic. And then we help them turn that into a scholarly project. And the good news is that your interest is what informs the project. And so there can be a wide variety of project types, and we'll highlight a few here in just a moment. But Every single fellow will also have a core mentor through the Fairbanks Center for Medical Ethics that's a faculty serve as their mentor for the project. There are occasions when, in addition to a core faculty member, we'll have an outside content expert co-mentor a fellow if they have a dedicated area of expertise that is pertinent. Needless to say, this project takes time, but that's why we have laid out a very organized evolution of project milestones for fellows so that they can be successful. And that means starting with a project idea formulation session where fellows explain why they have an interest in something and what that interest is. And we as the faculty here at the Fairbanks Center for Medical Ethics will help them understand what it might look like to turn that interest into a scholarly project. And then we move fellows through completion of that project, everything from how do you find literature in the online databanks, Ovid and PubMed and CNOL, to doing an annotated bibliography, to completing a literature review, to then also having opportunities throughout the fellowship to give updates, which we call work in progress or WIPs, and get feedback to help overcome barriers or navigate complexities of the project that are creating consternation or challenges for the respective fellow. And then every fellow at the end of the fellowship will do a final presentation, and the nature of the presentation usually reflects the project that the fellow is doing. Not infrequently, fellows are doing either quality improvement or teaching type projects, and their final presentation is either a formal communication of a curriculum they've created or a practice run of a abstract that they've submitted to a national conference. While scholarly projects do not have to be published, we certainly encourage and want our fellows to have high quality projects. And I think we speak to that acknowledging that year to date, we have 39 past fellows who have published their scholarly project in a peer-reviewed journal. And Robin reminded me earlier today that we have 2 that are pending publication in respective journals as well. So we'll soon be 41. Here are some examples of past fellow projects to give you an idea of the breadth of and variety that project can encompass. Sherry Bates, one of the managers of education for respiratory care here at IU Health, did a survey study looking at respiratory therapists' impression of their involvement in decision-making at end of life for terminally ill patients who are going to be compassionately extubated. Sean Gerber, chaplain down in Bloomington, prepared a grand rounds presentation essentially about values clarification and ethics consultation for patients at end of life. And then you can see some additional ones there as well. So the projects can take many forms. And again, the purpose of the project is to facilitate the interest of a fellow, not for us to assign a project to you. And I think we found that that really helps fellows maintain traction and focus on the project throughout the fellowship year. I'll also throw out that we do have a little carrot to help motivate and keep fellows on track as well, which is that each fellowship year, we allow fellows to apply for scholarship, and we will grant a scholarship to a fellow each year that wants to present at a national conference. This means fellows have completed a project, have submitted an abstract to a national conference that's been accepted, and we're prepared to help support them get to that conference and disseminate that important work. I always make a point to say, which I realize I did not say at the previous Lunch and Learn, the continental United States, we're prepared to support you to go there. No Maui for anyone who happened to find ASBH a couple years being in Hawaii. I'm going to read this last impact statement from Jessica Journey and then hand things over to Robin so that she can talk with you about the application process and interview process. But this statement comes from Jessica Journey, who was my mentee actually just in this past fellowship class. And she adopted or argued in favor of adopting a philanthropic model of stewardship and applying that to stewardship for living kidney donors in the organ transplantation process. And she says, the Clinical Ethics Fellowship is one of the most challenging and rewarding learning experiences of my career. As a non-clinical leader at IU Health, I'm now much more familiar in bedside decision-making, medical culture, and ethical analysis. I have a better understanding of our clinical teams and the difficulties they navigate daily to best serve our patients and families. We hope everyone feels the way Jessica did at the time that they're fellowship has concluded.
Yeah, so I know that people are really excited now about the fellowship and you're saying, I want to apply, can I? And yes, you certainly can. We want you to apply. So who can apply? We do require that you have a minimum of a bachelor's degree. While we give priority to IU Health team members, we always encourage those outside IU Health to apply. We have at least one outside of IU Health every year. You do not need to have specific or formal training in ethics. That's why you come to us. It is helpful to have some medical knowledge and language, but I also will say that as an interdisciplinary group, we do a lot of teaching. Even if we come with some basic medical knowledge, we still teach each other a lot. And then you really need to be able to have that focused interest on ethics and be able to tell how you hope to be able to use that when you go back to your own clinic setting. So what does this, so who do we look for when we are particularly looking for ethics fellows? We certainly want a person who is going to be able to communicate in a professional manner. So we talk about topics that are controversial, that not everybody is going to agree upon. So how can we make sure that we're going to be respectful to each other, that we're going to respect our interdisciplinary group, and it's also going to be willing to be vulnerable and be willing to share, to stand up and say, you know what, I don't agree, and you don't agree in a professional manner, or this is really hard for me, and here's why, or I'm curious, I don't understand this, can you help me understand? I think all of those things about being professional and being vulnerable really go to that very last one, which is creating that safe space, because the group becomes a place where everybody is very vulnerable and able to say and explore with each other so that they can grow. And then we want someone who's going to be able to contribute to those conversations. We don't want someone who's just going to soak in, but someone who's also going to give back. And that's one of the reasons that we're so intentional about being interdisciplinary, is because we learn from each other, and we can't learn from you if you were just a little bump on the log. So like I said, we are very interdisciplinary. This is not all of the professions that we have had. The one that we need to probably add up there is that this year we have a middle school English teacher. His school is being very gracious and letting him come for a day a week. But if you were like, well, gosh, I don't know if this would apply to me, if my particular profession would apply, we bet it would, and we can find a way to justify it. So please don't ever hesitate, whatever setting you might be in. So how do you apply? You'll need to get together your CV or your resume. It doesn't have to be as fancy as a CV. It can be just a simple resume. So your resume, you're going to have 4 essays that we're going to ask that you write. And those, once you jump into the application, you will see that what those essays are. And then two letters. So one of them is a letter of recommendation. That is someone who can really speak to you as a person and your ability to, be a part of an interdisciplinary group, or your ability to do critical thinking, or your just ability to be to do the fellowship. And the second is a letter of support from your supervisor. And that statement or that letter must say that they will release you from work on Wednesdays through August to May. And the reason we do that is really to protect you and to protect us. That if your supervisor is like, hey, I need you to work some Wednesdays, you can be like, hey, don't forget you signed this letter, and I can't, because you agreed that I would not be assigned to any shifts on Wednesdays. And then also, we're holding a spot for you, and so this helps us be able to say, this is your protected time, and what we are pouring into you will be protected. As you work on your application, you don't have to start and finish at the same time. You can start and save and come back to it later. But please, when you stop, it will ask you, or when you hit save, it'll ask you to write down, or you will be given a code. That code is not emailed to you. So please write down that code, put it somewhere where you will know, so that you can come back and start again. Annie does have access to that, and yet we just prefer, it's helpful to everyone if you are able to access that yourself. Our application is online only, and we're going to walk through in a second our website of how you can get to that. And the ways that we do that is that we read all of the applications, and then Brian and Annie and I together decide who we think would be a good fit for us to interview, and we extend those interviews, and then all of our faculty will read the applications and do the interviews. And it is a competitive fellowship. There is no guarantee to getting accepted, because again, it's for 6 to 9 people. Applications are already open, so you can go now to the application. They are closing March 24th. It's a Friday at 5 p.m. And so the red cap is the one that shuts it off. And so at 5 o'clock, red cap closes it off, and we are not able, and we choose not to open it again. And so just please know that it has to be done by 5 p.m. By Monday the 3rd, you will know whether an interview has been offered to you or not. And then we are doing interviews on May 8th and May 15th. Hopefully mostly on May 8th, but if we need to, we'll do some on the 15th. And those interviews are an hour long. We will bring you in, and you'll be a part of a small group, which will discuss a case. And then there will be 2 of us and you who will sit together and interview together. And then by the 29th, you will know whether you are part of the next fellowship group or not. And so there are a couple of different ways to access it. You can go to fairbankscenter.org, or you can scan that QR code, and that will take you to the application. If you go to Fairbanks Center or scan the QR code, which will take you to this, you will see this is the front page of our website, and you go down to the part that says Fellowship, Fairbanks Fellowship in Clinical Ethics. It'll take you to that page, and then you can scroll down and you can find the link that says Apply Here. Another piece that is on our website is this information sheet that you might want to give to your managers, because we understand and appreciate the fact that it's a big ask to be gone from your floor for a week for an entire 9 months. And sometimes that means getting other people to cover for you. And so we have put together what we hope is helpful to your manager, to give them some ideas of why it would be helpful for them and how it will benefit them to have you attend this fellowship. But then also don't hesitate to have them watch this particular presentation so they can learn exactly what you're learning. So how will you benefit from the fellowship? You really are going to become that resource to your department or your hospital. I so appreciate the fact of what AJ said in her quote. You're going to be able to help your colleagues provide that, think about their framework for their ethical decision-making. I'm confident you have colleagues that are facing some moral distress, and so you can help support them through that. And you will just impact the practice of your colleagues. And then for some of you, if you'd like to stay involved, not in a paid position, but in a volunteer position, there are opportunities to stay involved with the Fairbanks Center or the ethics committee at your particular hospital, wherever you might be. And so Sharon and Joke, I'll end with this quote, she was a pediatric ethics fellow while she was with us and is now a physician with the US Navy. And she says, I think most people in the medical profession confuse a moral compass with ethics knowledge. I thought I had a good handle on ethics. We'll always make the right decision in any situation. I learned that ethics is not black or white, but always gray. Navigating the gray is very complicated. And I think Sharon does a great job with navigating that gray. So, all right, what questions do you have? Please feel free to unmute yourself or type your questions in the chat. Annie, do we already have some questions in the chat? No, okay, all right, perfect. Anything that we can, don't hesitate to unmute yourself or type away. And if you come up with any questions later, you're like, oh, I wish I'd asked this question. Don't hesitate to email fcme@iuhealth.org and we'll get back to you. All right. Anything last note you wanted to say, Brian?
Nope, sounds like we covered exactly everything, as no one has a question for us. So kudos to you and me.
That's right.
And
that's right. We look forward to reading your application.
I was going to say, we'll expect an application from everyone who's on the call today. We appreciate you joining us. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks.